I'm all high.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Summit Up, your one-stop shop for all things Denver Summit FC, with plenty of side hikes into the greater NWSL landscape, women's sports in Denver, and everything you should know about the culture and community of soccer at 5280.
Summit Up is part of the Bangarang soccer community, telling soccer stories a mile in the sky and straight on till morning. Check out our Colorado Rapids sibling show, Pidcast, and our soccer conversation series, Interrobang. More importantly, we aim to be a collaborative human soccer show for community-minded soccer humans. So do your best corner flag slide right into our DMs.
Let's kick it. I'm Kaylee, and with me is my co-host, Hallie. We have a shorter episode for you all today, but some exciting announcements all along the way. So let's dive in and go peak to peak. So this week was April Fool's, and I don't know if you guys saw any funny pranks around. Hallie, I don't know if you are a fan of April Fool's or not, but I did see that Summit FC tried to prank their fellow teams in the league with an Instagram DM saying like, "Oh my gosh, did you mean to post that?" Which seemed unsuccessful to actually trick anybody, but nonetheless, I like seeing the like camaraderie and effort between the different franchises chatting with each other.
Yeah, I log on social media for about 10 minutes, I think, on April Fool's Day, see that it's all April Fool's pranks and log off for the day. But I did see that the Summit tried to prank the team and with like a trivia game where Natasha Flint was predisposed with all the answers to impress her teammates with some history knowledge. So I thought that was a clever one as well.
I love those little like tidbits of social personality coming through. I think they're so fun, and I just love seeing those come through. But let's move on to the game. So Matt, Hallie, and I all watched the game together at one of our absolute favorite sports bars, and that is the 99ers Sports Bar. We watched it alongside many of you, some FC fans and listeners, and it was a fantastic vibe. Great drinks, cool people. If you're listening right now and thinking, man, I really want to start watching the games with more friends and fans, always be sure to check out our Instagram to see where we're headed to and to watch our favorite team. Anyways, over to you, Hallie, with some of the recap.
Thanks, Kaylee. And yeah, there was people who came by themselves, made friends along the way. So definitely encourage you to come out, even if you don't have any other friends that are into the Summit or anyone to go with. But yeah, we saw another scoreless draw, which was Kaylee's prediction, so thank you, Kaylee, for that. No goals for any of us. But, it's a point on the board.
Yeah, sorry about that. As much as I love being right, I wish I was wrong in the sense of I wish we had gotten a goal. But hey, we'll see. Stay tuned. A little plug for my in prediction. Hopefully my next one comes true as well for the positive. We saw an unchanged lineup for the third game in a row. That's a 4-4-2. Summit had its chances specifically from Saunas and Kostler, but tended to go high and wide. It felt a little unlucky to leave Spokane with just 1 point. And we kind of got the sense of that frustration post-match from Carson and Megan Reed as well as Nick, that this was 2 points dropped. But I personally felt like we were seeing a little bit more cohesion than maybe was translating. I feel like people were getting a little bit more comfortable with each other and getting used to each other, but would have really liked to see some of that follow through on the back post.
Yeah, there was definitely, I think, good possession and good chances and good build up. Just that final ball in, Rain was just kind of beating us to some of those crosses and getting in the way, which, they're a good defensive team, and I'm not totally surprised by that. But yeah, it was frustrating. One couldn't stick one in the back of the net. But yeah, we saw similar lineups to what we've seen lately, and then Io, Oki, and Emma Regan came in around the 60th minute. Oki came in and was actually playing in front of Sonis, kind of in a right midfield, sort of right wing position. And Regan replaced Devin Lynch in that defensive midfield. And if you look at the game stats, I use FotMob, which is a free app, but you look at the little momentum graph, and it's all Summit from the 60th minute to the 90th minute after they came on. I think they really did inject some fresh legs, fresh energy into that squad. And then there's one rain chance at the end that kind of disrupted that. But I think these were good subs. They're players that have previously started earlier in the season, and I'm curious to see if either starts to find their way back into the upcoming starting lineup. Eventually, Olivia Thomas and Natalie Means came in, but it was like the 91st minute, so there wasn't really a chance for them to make an impact there. But I do think it's interesting how the preferences have shifted since preseason. Some players that came in and seemed like they would be locked in starters, like Regan and Allie Brazier, are struggling to find minutes with this formation. I think that kind of first game against Bay showed some, holes maybe. We were down a player. I think it's like hard to totally extrapolate that, but I think it showed some gaps maybe where we could be exploited. And Nick's kind of overcorrected, I think, into this defensive stability, which has its pros. We're apparently I think one of the first expansion teams to have 3 shutouts in your first 5 games or something. But yeah, I'm hoping they can find more balance and get some of the forwards going. Olivia Thomas has been subbing in around the 80th, 89th, 90th minute these last couple games, and that's just not enough time to really see her do what she can do. So, yeah, I think, Nick's trying to find more combinations and things that'll work, and hopefully these next couple weeks they'll be able to work on that and figure out how to use more of the squad. It's a long season, and you have to think that we'll find a way to do that. But yeah, I'm curious when. But undefeated in 4 games since that Bay loss, but only 1 win to take from that so far.
Yeah, I saw some comments in a couple of the Reddit groups, Facebook groups, all the places where people like to scuttle about and chat about the games, where people were saying, "Where's Lourdes? Where's she at? What's going on with her, and why isn't he putting more minutes behind her?" And I have the same question, Nick. What's going on?
Yeah, I thought she did really well against Utah in preseason at Coachella. I was at that game. Was really speedy and annoying to the Utah outside backs. But yeah, she's yet to make her debut. She did get called up for Mexico this break, so she'll be playing with the Mexican national team. But yeah, I hope we start to see her when we get back from that as well.
Yeah. We got a chance to chat with 2 of the players post-game at the press conference. Left back Carson Pickett, number 16, and center back Megan Reed, number 2. We got to hear their thoughts, and all 3 of us got to ask some questions. That's honestly some of my favorite part of this little job, and just watching the games is getting to chat afterwards. As you can tell with a microphone in front of me, I love to chat. But anyways, I asked Carson and Megan how it felt to have approximately 60,000 less fans than they did at their previous game, which was the home opener at Mile High. And I always love when one of my questions gets a little bit of a chuckle out of the players. And they both did. They both laughed, and Megan said that she could actually hear her teammates, which was nice. I can only imagine how much easier that is to communicate.
Positive spin, yeah.
Yeah, on the field. And Carson said it kind of felt like a home game for them, and at the very least didn't feel like a Seattle home game, and didn't feel like they had any sort of home field advantage. So that gives us a real big chance coming up in our next game that's going to be home to really rattle the San Diego Wave, who will be playing. And I liked hearing both of their perspectives be very positive.
Yeah, it felt like if one of those had gotten clipped for the internet, Carson might have been memed a bit. But
yeah.
To be fair to Seattle, they're playing in Spokane, which is not really their home field, but that is their last Spokane game. So hopefully they can get some more fans into Lumen for the rest of the season. I complimented them on their defensive stability. Like I said, I do think they've had more structure the last couple games. Megan stepping in for Gaetino, I think she's been really great the last couple games. And it'll be interesting to see when Gaetino is healthy, which is hopefully sooner than initially feared. She's got the boots back on already. It'll be interesting to see who's kind of favored. But yeah, I thought they both did really well. I asked them, what are they trying to do to get things going more offensively? Like, you have a really good defensive stability now. They're both defenders, so, they're doing their job. But they felt that, the offense was clicking last night. It was one of their better performances offensively in terms of like creating chances and moving the ball up the field. But they just couldn't get past that force field to put one in the back of the net.
Following Carson and Megan, we got a chance to speak to head coach Nick Cushing to get his thoughts on the match. What did you take away from that, Hallie?
Yeah, I got to ask Nick about his, substitution philosophy. I think you see some coaches who kind of make the same subs every game, regardless of what's happening. I don't get that vibe from Nick. It seems sort of situational and reactive to what he's seeing. And he said he wanted to try Oki further up the pitch. You know, she'd been playing it right back when she was playing for the Summit, and that given her technical ability in tight spaces and crossing, that he thought she might be able to make a difference, you know, further up the pitch, which sounds like he was pleased with that, and maybe we'll see that again going forward. And then he said, you know, Lynch is still a rookie, and he doesn't really expect her to be able to go 90 minutes every game. So, you know, Regan was the natural swap there for a little defensive stability. He said in hindsight he maybe could have put Olivia Thomas on a little earlier to try and get a goal, but he also felt like things were working and he didn't really want to disrupt it or pull Kostler too early. You know, it's like easy to say afterwards what doesn't work. It's hard to kind of bet on it in the moment. And overall, you know, we kind of asked him about, you know, not using some of the players that have been used before and just like limited personnel and keeping players happy. And he said, you know, the vibe I got was like he wants every point on the board. They're already thinking about, you know, how many points they need for the playoffs, and they don't want to risk, you know, dropping any of these games just to get more players in. Everything counts, and, you know, they're just not there yet in terms of team cohesion. But he said the players that are staying behind during this international break will play some sort of friendly. We did not find out who this friendly will be against, and that some of those players will be able to get some more competitive minutes, get a chance to kind of impress him, and, you know, get more game-like situations.
That'll be great. Hallie, you mentioned that we're going to go into this international break. And for fans who may be newer to the sport and newer specifically to the NWSL and Denver Summit FC and just this whole wave of fandom that we're seeing rise throughout women's sports in general, explain to us what that means within our context in the NWSL and the broader landscape.
Yeah, so FIFA, who I think most people have heard of, the governing body of global soccer, sets a calendar each year for when national teams can schedule their games. And essentially, if the national teams can schedule their games, you know, your professional leagues are generally expected to pause for that period so that those players don't have to miss competitive games. And then depending on the confederation, which I won't go too far, but like kind of your regional, whether you're Europe or, you know, the Americas, dictates maybe what you're doing during those breaks. So for example, during this break, Europe is already doing their World Cup qualifying for next summer. Europe has a ton of teams to get through qualifying for, so they kind of do that through a long cycle. So Pauline, our backup goalkeeper, will be in with the French team already doing World Cup qualifying this break. And then, you know, sometimes those games are friendlies. So the U.S., for example, are not in World Cup qualifying yet. They're going to play Japan in 3 friendlies. One of those is here in Denver, so get your tickets if you haven't already. And their World Cup qualifying, you know, for both Japan and the U.S. will come later. I'm excited. We might get to see our new signing, Yuzuki Yamamoto, play against Lindsay Heaps in this window, hopefully also including the game at Dick's on the 17th. And then per a conversation with Nick, Yuzuki will just stay in Denver after that third game at Dick's. So we'll expect to see her with the Summit after that. But in total, the Summit have 7 players who will be on this break. Janine Sonis and Emma Regan will be with Canada, playing in like a little FIFA series break. I think it's like a made-up tournament. Io and Yuna, I believe, are going to play for the US U23 team, which is sort of, you know, not the full national team, but a youth group team. They're headed to Europe. Yuzuki's playing with Japan. Paulina's playing with France, and Lourdes is playing with Mexico. So decent chunk of the squad will be missing. Carson said they'll be working on some individual training plans the next couple weeks, kind of get that extra attention and film sessions with the coach. In addition to that friendly that Nick mentioned.
Hallie, you have such deep knowledge about the whole landscape of the sport, and I want every listener tuning in right now, if you have a question, there's no question too simple or too small or too stupid to ask. Like, please ask us. I definitely feel like this is my rookie season learning everything in terms of how everything fits together. So our resident expert is 100% Hallie, and she will answer all your questions. Not to throw you on the spot like that, Hallie, but I do feel confident in your ability to answer.
Send them in and I'll do my best or make something up.
Moving on, our next game is home, and it is versus San Diego Wave at Dick's Sporting Goods Stadium, the home of the Colorado Rapids, which, let's just note, only holds 18,000 compared to our record-breaking attendance of 63,000. So go ahead and make sure you get your tickets. We'll be cross-promoting that match with a bus and tailgate with our friends at 99ers. At right now, it's about one bus. If two is required because of demand, let us know. We'll be leaving from the 99ers Sports Bar on Colfax with access to drinks and a cooler on the bus, some pre-match tunes, just a good vibe, and then we'll be returning to 99ers post-game. So stay tuned for more details on that, and the best place to find up-to-date information from that would either be at our Summit Up show on Instagram or on the 99ers Instagram.
Yeah, I'm excited to see San Diego. They officially announced Kat Macario, who is a U.S. She's born in Brazil, plays for the U.S. Women's National Team. Following her time at Stanford, she went directly to Europe, played at Lyon and Chelsea, and this will be, potentially her NWSL debut. She's been working her way back from injury, but yeah, we'll be looking to see if she'll be lining up against us at Dick's in a couple weeks' time.
We're excited. All right. Back to this is probably my favorite and least favorite part of our episodes, just because I hate rooting for anything other than us to win, but also want to be accurate. Game predictions. So today you only have me and Hallie for our predictions, and Matt could not join us today. So my prediction, I think Summit is just itching for a win. I think we're starting to see some more cohesion build with each match. So I'm going to go with 1-0 Summit for this one. I think we're going to bring a W home, and fans, let's just be sure to come out and show support. We heard how much it really does make a difference to the players, so do your part. Come to the game.
Yeah, get those feet stomping, recreate some of that noise we had at Mile High. I think San Diego have scored maybe the second most goals of any team so far this season, and that's without Macario, so I do get a little nervous going against them. I think shutting them out will be difficult. So I'll give them a goal, but I'm going to hope that the Summit can get scoring again and that we outnumber them and we take a 2-1 victory at Dick's.
All right. There you have it. We'll have to get Matt's prediction and just post it on Instagram because he's not getting out of this one. He still has to give his prediction.
We need to do like a rolling tally of...
Yes. Oh, I will
who's got the most
absolutely go
predictions
back.
right this season. I think we each have one so far.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening so much. Our aim for the podcast going forward, just so you guys know, is to give you all an episode every single week and aiming for that on Mondays. But since we are going on international break, the cadence might be a little bit more or less. So stay tuned for some interviews that we are hoping to get lined up. And we just hope that you guys are ready for some exciting content.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's a long season. We're just getting started. Hopefully we'll be recording through, playoffs in November and yeah, gearing up for a big 2026. As always, be sure to check us out on socials at Summit Up Show on Instagram and at Summit Up on Blue Sky. Till next time, Summit Up.